How are we tonight? Good? Everybody's good? Okay, so let me tell you where we are. This evening we are in the cherry blossom fields, okay? So it's that time of year. Does everybody like the beauty of the cherry blossoms? And there's this view, you know, see the big winding staircase in the front. It's so lovely, so pretty. I'm glad you all came to see them in bloom, because they're not going to be here next month. Who knows what will be here next month. It's good to see you all. Huh? Tulips? Oh, yeah. Next month will be tulip seasons. We can do tulips. Tulip sounds good. All right, so welcome to the fourth month in our building block series. 2020 is still coming, whether we are ready or not. So we're going to be channeling another building block, a foundational building block that when you grab it, you know it, and you integrate it, you have a foundation for the building of all of the happiness and success that you want in your life. 2020 is a year that's going to be bringing in an entirely different energy than we're accustomed to. And we want to be on firm footing when it rolls in. Because when energy shifts as much as it will be shifting in 2020, it's not the time to test your confidence with your version of life and your version of yourself. You want to at least feel like you have a pretty good idea of who you are and what you're doing. Doesn't mean that you have to be finished, because none of us are ever finished, because finished is incredibly boring, right? But you want to not be in that beginner stage of trying to figure out what the heck you're doing here, and you feel like life is knocking you down every day when you get out of bed. You want to kind of be a little bit past that, so that the shifts in the energy that come with 2020, you'll be firmly planted there, and you'll be able to watch them and participate in happy and helpful ways to other people, but they're not going to knock you over, and that's the goal. So I'm going to review quickly what the other three building blocks were so far for this year. And the first one, in January, our building block was just a new way of thinking about the term change is possible. You know, when we hear change is possible, you're like, duh, of course change is possible. But the way we're looking at change is possible as one of the building blocks for having a happy life is that any change that you want for yourself is possible for you, regardless of your history or your background or where you are today. That's the change we want to bring in. That's the change is possible that we want to bring in. Because what we tend to not even realize is that we have unconscious beliefs that cap the potentiality, or they cap our happiness, or whatever it is we're aiming to achieve or to grow or to expand into, because we have set points based on our history and our emotions and what the world has told us is possible or is not possible. So when you say for yourself, change is possible, you want to understand that it is for you regardless of where you come from, regardless of your history, and regardless of what the achievement or the goal or where it is your destination is, where it is you want to go. Regardless of any of those factors, change and shift is possible for you, okay? As we all know, that however you get tumbled around earlier in life, you tend to gravitate back toward that set point of emotional response and reactions. So even if you rise a little bit above the happiness level that you might have had when you were younger, you tend to go back down to whatever set point you had as your own personal normal in your youth. The whole idea here is that that does not have to be the truth anymore. You can move and elevate and expand. Change is possible for you, okay? All right, that's number one. And it's a pretty good foundational tool for the whole year, because anything else that we're going to be doing in this year, if you don't think that change is possible, then forget about all the other 11 building blocks that we're going to talk about, right? Or let us go home. Not home, home. Oh, eternal life humor. Okay, so month 2 in February, the building block was, I really liked this one, the way that it came in, but the building block is soft. It's about taking a hard lens in how we're viewing things and softening it. Because the hard lens, it's not hurting anybody except for you. So when you're looking at something harshly, whether it's through pain or pessimism or judgment or anger, resentment, jealousy, fury, if you're approaching something with a hard lens, especially with your own body of history, it's impossible for that thing to become peaceful. It's impossible for that thing to lose its contentiousness. It's impossible for that thing to lose its grip over you if it's holding you in this place where you don't want to be. So the whole idea of soft is to go from one energy of approach and to shift to another energy of approach. In the year before us, in the seminar in January, we went through the entire alphabet and gave shifts from one to another, A, B, C, D, E. And I believe we're on F right now. Everybody on every Sunday is getting their letters emailed to them every Sunday night. So I'll see if I can give you one example just as a reminder. Let me think of one. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. A was to shift from an approach of aggravation to an approach of acceptance, moving from the A of aggravation to the A of acceptance. So if you're a good way of just looking at this is if you are frustrated by the guy that's going 47 miles an hour in the fast lane on the LIE, you can be aggravated, right? You can flash your light, you can step on the gas, you can ride his bumper, you can do all that. Or you can accept that this person is in the fast lane right now and he's going to continue to go 47 miles an hour. When you accept it, your blood pressure comes down, your feeling of being disempowered dissolves, and then you can come up with a different approach. Either you just stay in that lane or you start to say, oh, well, maybe I'll just wait and try to move over and shift and go around him. But when you go from aggravation to acceptance, all of a sudden better ideas, more empowering ideas, and even softer ideas come in to help you with that, okay? Month 3, which was March. I'm not going to do this every month, so you better have notes. Okay, I liked last month's too, because this is probably one of the shifts that I experienced the most when I had my big shift after 9/11. And the thing is, it's warmth. It's approaching people and places and experience and things with a new sense of warmth. And if you were here last month, then you saw that we had some courageous volunteers who came up and let me shake their hands. And it was to show that simply the gesture of having eye contact with someone, a warm handshake, ask if I can give you a hug, just making people feel like you are present to them and that they matter and that you see them. That extra warmth, it helps people to feel like they're visible and it helps people feel like they're alive. What's interesting is the reciprocity of that is it bounces right back off them and it comes back to you. Because in that state of gratitude that they have for you and having felt like they are visible and that they matter, and they in tune and in kind, they make you also feel like you matter and that you're significant and that you're there and that you're present, okay? In my lifetime, I'm hoping to see the fact that we're becoming so disconnected with litigiousness and Me Too and all this. We don't have to litigate about when and where and how to touch people. This is because people have stopped moderating their own behaviors and their own choices. You know if you're touching someone in an appropriate way or not. We don't have to actually come in and legislate this. We are legislating it now because people forgot to be able to think for themselves. But if we give people the power back to listen to that kernel of truth within them, then we can actually start to approach one another down the road with kindness and warmth and acceptability and welcoming. Now, I think it's if you think about it, like a little kid who has a rough home life, and who knows, maybe they're being hit, or maybe they're being disregarded, or maybe they're neglected in some other way. If imagine their teacher's not allowed to even give them a hug. So this child is now completely devoid of physical contact. One of the things that we've shown, many tests have shown, that if someone is touched, whether it's through a massage or hugs or certainly held in infancy, that it changes all of your physiological reactions. It calms the central nervous system. It makes a person feel more optimistic, makes a person ignite the love that's within them. So the way we're heading about hands off, don't touch, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. You got to go take all those workplace rules. But in our hearts, it's really important that we start to let people understand that we have the capability of knowing when and where and how we can embrace one another and to have that warmth. But at the moment, follow whatever rules are out there, because I don't want to send you to the stockades. But where you can, open up to more warmth, open up to more contact with people where you can. Okay? So this month, speaking of the year before us, you think I'd have notes here. Do you guys are used to this. I look here constantly. There's nothing here. There's nothing there. I am always looking here, but if you really want to see, this is what I'm looking at. Okay, okay, it looks good. All right, I look like I could be like a news broadcaster or something, right? Okay, so all right, so yeah. I look like I know what I'm doing, but there are no notes there. I'm going to keep referring to them, but they do not exist. All right? So I look ridiculous if I'm looking up in the corner of a corner of the room where I'm really getting my notes from, which is your guys, because that looks like I can't see you, and then I'm not being warm, right? No eye contact. So I keep reverting to this invisible piece of paper that has nothing written on it. Okay, so 2020 in the year before a seminar in 2020, January, is going to be in Grenada. Just want to put that out there one more time. We're taking $200 deposits by June 1st to secure your accommodations choice. Okay? Grenada works a little bit differently than some of the other Caribbean islands. They don't really have a large tourism connection with the United States, so they don't necessarily have the same kind of contractual agreements that I'm used to with giving multi-day seminars elsewhere. So what we're doing is I'm scooping up the accommodations that I want as much as I can on a rolling basis. So when you give me your deposit, we'll contact you after June 1st. First in gets their first choice of accommodations. So you're guaranteed to have a place to stay where you want to be. All right, I just want to remind people of that. At the trip, huh? Oh, and there's flyers in the back. I don't know how that happened, but that got done for me. Thank you. Flyers in the back, and they're real. You can actually look at them, and there's meaningful things written on it, unlike this. So anyway, so that's the reason why we're doing the deposit, is because, like I said, it works a little different in Grenada. It's not the same as operating with a typical hotel contract that I would have up here. And that's it. All right, everybody go home. How is everybody? You're all good? You feeling good? You feel good that spring's coming? I can see you're ready for spring, most definitely, right? Yeah, I could smell the flowers from here. Or maybe that's just the cherry blossoms that I smell. You can see the cherry blossoms. Of course you could see them. But one time when my son was a little tiny toddler, he was about 2 years old, and I had to have him at like an all-day trade show kind of thing, right? My book had just come out, and I had the table and the whole 9 yards. So he's a little baby, so I brought him with me. And outside of the place were all these cherry blossom trees like this, like tons of them, and it was a windy day in April. And so I kept taking breaks and having the person at the table next to me watch my table, and then I would take him outside. And I just will never ever forget this. The wind, it was raining cherry blossoms on us. We had cherry blossoms in everything. We were picking them up and scooping them up by the handful and throwing them at each other and making it rain more. Oh, it was such a great memory. That's what I want you to enjoy when you're seeing us. Just enjoy that memory with me. Okay, so we'll get into tonight's topic, which is the next building block, and then I'll save time at the end for questions, because I think I cut you guys off last time, so I'll do a better job tonight with questions. Okay? So any questions? Sneak one in.
I do. When you say 2020 will be different energy, what kind of different energy?
We'll talk about it a lot next January, of course, and it's not only 2020. The way I'm seeing 2020, our guides are showing it to me as it looks a little bit like, metaphorically, like the St. Louis Arch. Has anyone ever been there?
Yeah, no.
Thing is magnificent. It's just so darn huge. Like it doesn't do it justice if you look at it in pictures. But I keep seeing it like this arch, and the arch it looks like it's made of quartz, like it shines in the light. It's a massive white gate. And when you go through the gate, if you are intending to be awakened, if you're in some state of enlightenment, it could be the tiniest little bit of enlightenment, right? You're not 100% asleep. Okay, tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of enlightenment. When you walk through that gate into 2020, that gate becomes a magnet that pulls off some of the stuff that you've been carrying that's too heavy for you. So 2020 is going to lift from us that which is burdening us. It's not going to do it by itself. That's why you have to be in some intention of awakening, because as long as you're setting your intention to live more freely and optimistically and happily and joyfully with fulfillment with your relationship with the material world, your relationship with other people, your relationship with your career, if you have one, your relationship with your body and your body harmony. You have the intention for all of those to grow and expand. Some of those blocks, the universe is going to have more power to help you remove those blocks when we move into 2020. Okay. The corollary is if you're 100% asleep, which is nobody in this room, no one in this room ever, 100% asleep, you're going to get slammed after 2020, because the energy is now no longer supporting those who are not within the vibration of love. So love will be enhanced, and that which is separate from the vibration of love will fall. Okay? So those who live in greed or ego, those who step on others to get to where they want to be, those who are you know who we're talking about, right? The people that they're constantly negative, they're constantly putting other people down, they're constantly taking credit for other people's work. You know what I mean, right? They're just trying to get through a day. It's not that they're bad, it's just that their mechanisms for having gotten through life to where they are today, they're not allowing themselves to feel the purpose in what we're doing here on this planet, which is to grow and to love and to expand with one another. So in that state of ignorance, their childhoods put them in that state of ignorance. But I'm sure to some degree or another, we had our struggles when we were young, right? Somehow, some way, we woke up enough to say, this is not enough. I want to be happy. I want to be loving. I want to be kind. I want to be different than I may have been after the difficulties of my childhood. I want to love myself. I want to care about myself. I want to not live sacrificially. I want to live abundantly. So since we did it, everyone can do it, right? Isn't that the truth? I know it's so easy to feel bad for people when they're living in an incredible state of deep ignorance when they're adults. But at some point you have to say, no one walked me through this. No one kidnapped me and locked me in a room until I got the first little iota of enlightenment. I did it. Somehow, some way I did it. We all have the core inside of us. We all have that kernel inside of us. We all have that spark inside of us. So in 2020 on, it's incentivizing those who have not yet woken up at any level to start the process of waking up. That's what 2020 and on will do. Okay? So the building blocks, the reason I'm dedicating myself to the building blocks this year is because I want all of you guys to be prepared. And on the other side of the growing energy after 2020, there's going to be a lot of people that need your help and they want your support. They want your kindness and your softness and your warmth. right? So we want to be prepared to help people too, because we don't want to keep them on the other side of the gate. We want them to come through the arch where the cherry blossoms are instead of staying in the darkness of the other side. Correct? Okay. All right, so this, did I answer someone's question? Did I answer it?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. So let me look at my non-existent notes here. Okay, so for the month of April, so what am I doing? I'm giving you the fourth building block, right? Okay, so the fourth building block. I had an Enlightenment Power group in the city on Monday, and I don't think anybody here was there. Oh, you were, yes. Yes, thank you for being there. It was great to see you. Good to see you again. So we did download what the building block is, but we're just going to go into it on a different level and with a different approach here. And the building block is to recognize that it's to take a firm look at and really, really grasp that the basis of every disharmony on this planet is fear. Okay? So that's what it is. It's fear. So think this through for a second. All right, suppose we look at the history of war. Primarily war is, we're fighting over religion or territory, right? And if you say, well, it's oil or it's this or it's that, well, it's still territory, isn't it? So we're fighting over the resources of territory or religion. Those are basically the only things we fight about. And so why are we fighting over those things? Fear. I'm afraid that if I don't get your oil, I will not have electricity. I will not be able to power my car. It's fear. So, well, what about religion? Well, I want to get into the pearly gates, or I don't want to burn in hell, or I want to, whatever else I might be doing, I want to be chosen by whatever God I worship. And in order to win the favor of this male deity, I have to win favor by, spreading my religion or eradicating yours. So what is it? I'm not afraid of practicing my religion. I'm afraid of not winning the favor of my God, or I'm afraid that if your religion comes over into my territory, then maybe I'm not superior. What if your religion, you guys are all happier, and then I'm not so happy next to you? Then my fear is losing the ability to practice what I think is my religion in peace without you interfering with your ways or your thoughts that might conflict with mine. So it's always based on fear. Fear that we think something is going to be taken away from us, or fear that something is at threat, or that there's some scarcity, or that there's something that we may lose. All disharmony on this planet is based on fear, okay? It's amazing to think about this, that even body disharmony is based on fear. Because from the time that we're born, we're really told a lot of information about things that we should be afraid of in the world, things that are going to kill us, things that are going to choke us, things that are going to make us sick, things that are going to happen, how we're going to fall, how we're going to get hurt, how we're going to wind up in the hospital. So as soon as you get up on those feet, they're like, oh, don't do this, don't touch that, don't go near that, don't walk, don't step, tie your shoe, don't touch that, get away from the stairs, right? And ever since, so it must be the night for my son, because here's another funny thing. I swear, this boy that I was talking about, the cherry blossom kid, he was really intuitive. He got up and he took his first steps at 12 months. Okay, no big deal. Walked across the room. Happy. Well, after a few steps, he sat down and he didn't get up again for 2 months. I've never seen anything like it. Talk about intuition. He's like, as I'm sitting here, if I don't get up again, this world is not going to tell me what not to do, are they? I'm just going to stay seated. Smart. So anyway, that's not why he sat. I don't know why he sat, but he sat. Fear is what makes us have conversations with our bodies and ourselves that say that we are not going to stay harmonious. The conversation collectively on this planet is that if you're healthy, it's temporary. Disharmony is more expected and normal. You know, I always thought it would be kind of funny if you take all those stats that the pharmaceutical ads throw at the end. 1 in 5, 1 in 7, 1 in 10,000. If we took every body disharmony on the planet and we did the 1 in, like what are the chances that you don't have 6 or 7 of them right now, right? So of course you're going to be afraid. You're going to be afraid. But if you are taught that the body is resilient and magnificent and it's ignited from every cell on and outward, you start to reorganize the conversation that you're having with your body. And having body disharmony doesn't become the way that you're learning and growing to let go of that which it is you've forgotten. So your body is a messenger for you. It's conversing with you all the time. And when your body has to remind you of something that you forgot, that you knew before you were born, it's going to do so through a disharmony. So fear is the basis for every disharmony, whether it's with people, whether it's with countries, whether it's in politics, whether it's in the office, whether it's in your relationship with money. Fear is the basis of all disharmony. Okay? So what I would like to do, I've had, I haven't done it here in a long time, but I have a seminar called Freedom from Negative Thinking. And I've had some clients lately that said I could use a little bit of a renewal on those steps. Because when you're wanting to become less fear-based, when you are wanting to fear less, you want to gain control over your thoughts and you want to shift them. Because you can't just say, I want to fear less, or I understand the concept that all disharmony is created from fear, and then not have any disharmony anymore. You have to activate a shift and activate a change. And the first step in activating that change would be to become conscious of how you're thinking. Because in general, we give our thoughts free range. We let them go off liberally and do whatever they feel like doing. And every now and then we grab them and say, hey, what are you up to? And, oh, it's not so good. Did I tell you it's going to rain tomorrow? And did I tell you that your taxes are due? And did I tell you this? So if you check in with the brain, it's usually, sorry I checked in. I'm just going to go back to the cherry blossoms and leave you at whatever you're doing. Well, when you leave it at whatever it's doing, it's probably going to get you into a bit of a mess because it isn't always thinking things positive, right? It's not always grabbing a hold of itself and saying, these thoughts, how are they making me feel versus how do I want to feel? And what can I do with these thoughts to turn them around and help me to feel the way that I do want to feel? So in order for us to let go of some of the fears, if we would like to let go of fear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through some of the steps in helping you to gain some empowerment over your own thought energy. So we're going to go through some steps. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. And I will tell you that the steps that I talk about tonight, they really are the steps that I used after my first awakenings. And I did so very, very diligently because I was at a point in my life when I recognized that the dark shadows that hung over me from childhood were following me wherever I went. And no matter what happy thing I had in front of me, I couldn't jump with 2 feet into it and just have that win-win all over my whole being because the cloud was with me all the time. So I might have had moments in the absence of pain, but I wasn't really experiencing unlimited joy. And I wanted to experience joy, so I knew I had to take away the pain from my past. So when I started the process of going through these techniques to figure out how to start to be the master of my own thought energy instead of letting my thoughts run me into another brick wall. I did it with such discipline and with such pursuit and with such passion, because I honestly believed by that point in my life that my life depended on it. And it was interesting because even at that moment, I would say in my own head, I don't have the luxury of a negative thought. My life depends on it. I would say that to myself. I don't talk like that with you guys, right? Because it doesn't sound very optimistic. But the reason I said it to myself at that time was because when I said my life depends on it, I knew that some level of my life depended on it. Might not have been the physical existence in my body, but it would have been maybe my emotional life, my spiritual life, my financial life, my relationship life, my social life, my intellectual life. Whatever life comprises me, of all those lives that comprise me, they were at risk. So I really did feel like my life depended on being the one who was the master over my own thought energy. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's not to make it dramatic that my life depends on it, but it actually does. The freedom to have a happy life, socially, financially, relationship-wise, economically, intellectually, socially, I said that one, emotionally and spiritually. In order to have that, you are the one that wants to make the decision of what kind of energy you're putting out there through your thoughts and your being. All right. Now, I want to make sure that I say this because this is one of the most critical things to remember. When I say freedom from negative thinking and I say become the master of my own thoughts and I didn't have the luxury of a negative thought, I'm going to tell you that this is not the same as people saying be positive. I've noticed over the last 10 years that when others are talking about be positive, there's a kind of recklessness to being positive, meaning that you're not allowed to have a tough day. You're not allowed to have a tough thought. You have to always be sing-songy. You can't ever state the truth if somebody's hurt you. Be positive, be positive, be positive. Be positive means get back to the state of positivity, but make sure you're addressing the emotions that are actually coming up along the way. Because if you go from being slapped across the face and then you smile and say, be positive, that didn't hurt me, you're stuffing the energy of whatever you might really be feeling. So if that slap is from a person or it's from a job or it's from whatever, you want to address what happened. It's very important to address what happens. We have an unlimited capacity to stuff emotion, don't we? An unlimited capacity. And what's happening to all that stuff that you stuff? If you don't let it out, it's stuck in there. We don't want to stick that stuff in there. We want to unstuck it. So when you're thinking about changing your perspective from negative to positive, it's not about doing it like this. It's about doing it after you really address what's at hand and follow the thread of emotion to see what it's triggering. What is it making you feel? Is it bringing up a body of history that you've had? Is it making you feel insecure? Does it make you feel threatened? Does it make you feel disempowered? Does it make you feel like you're living in scarcity? Does it make you feel unloved? So it's so important that you actually address the emotion. Now, when I am thinking about addressing that emotion, I also want to say, if I address it, do I want to live in it forever? Like, how long do I want to address that emotion and all of the things that I feel in response to a negative experience? So the first tool or the first exercise in helping you to become free of negative thought is to put a time limit on how long you allow yourself to emote and to express and to experience after a negative stimuli or happening or event. So when I started this one I did really, really well with. when I started it, I decided to give myself 3 days. Okay. And back then I had a lot of, I don't know, I just had so much heaviness on me all the time, right? So what I would consider to be something negative back then would be like having a fight with the AT&T rep on the phone over $12.40, okay? That would have been enough to spiral me for a couple of days. You know, maybe I would have seemed normal during the day, but every time I took a breath or sat down, I'm back to replaying the damn phone call. You know, shoulda, woulda, coulda, they better call me back. I can't believe it. I'm not the one that rang up. You know, I mean, you know what you do, right? So then I'd wake up in the middle of the night, rapid heartbeat because I'm replaying the script over the $12.40 again. It was very hard. Same thing happened if a car drove through my garage too, but you know, it didn't matter if it was $12.40 or the house was wrecked. I had the same reaction. So I said 3 days will give me enough time to emote. It'll give me enough time to experience everything that I really am going to experience. And I also knew that for me personally, because I had 3 little kids at the time, I knew I needed the overnights because I was renowned for being able to grieve overnight and get anxious overnight and cry overnight and have sleepless nights, right? You do whatever you do during the day, but those nights, they're mine. I can be miserable overnight. So because I knew I needed the overnight, I gave myself 3 days. That'll give me plenty of time to do all this stuff I have to do. And I remember like the first time I had one of those triggers where I could feel the thoughts taking over my life again. And it grabs on like a poorly trained Rottweiler grabbing on an ankle. And so I'm trying to pull this puppy out of my head, and I let myself have all the emotions. I immersed myself in them. You know, one of my favorite things to do was I always wrote imaginary letters to people, you know, explaining my point and your point and my point. And then if someone else was involved, like if I was trying to save somebody else, then I wrote imaginary revenge letters. So I would do this overnight, all my stuff that I would do, and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd still give myself permission to emote. I have to tell you though, after a few times of giving myself the full 3 days, I was like, by day 2, I'm like, I have nothing to think about. I don't have any negative left. Like I used it all up. So I changed it to 1 day. So I would give myself 24 hours and I'd still have an overnight. And after a little bit of time with the 1 day, I found myself working through my emotions so rapidly that I moved it down to a 3-hour limit. I stayed with the 3-hour limit literally for months because it helped me to have a concentrated opportunity to be conscious of my thinking and my feelings and what I was emoting and what was being triggered and what my history was behind that trigger. So that 3 hours was really beneficial to me. And before I knew it, I didn't even set the intention to decrease the time limit. I moved down to an hour almost accidentally because I didn't even need the full 3 hours anymore. And after I realized I was doing everything in less than an hour, I was kind of almost down to minutes after that. And now, like, I'm not stuffing anything when something happens, but I move so rapidly from where I am to where I want to be that there's almost no dip anymore. It's actually quite surprising. I think something happened tonight while we were setting up, and you know, someone said, you know, how do you feel? Like, maybe I could have been panicking, like, oh my God, the whole night's ruined. And I was like, oh, I'm fine. We'll just figure out a different way, or we'll do it differently. But that's just how everything is for me now. But they managed to get the cherry trees in, even though they were getting blocked coming through the door. They got them in anyway, and it all worked out. So that's the way that I live now. But allowing myself to get into that state, I had to retrain myself, because paying attention to how we emote and how we think and how we react, and the important part of what is triggering it, what's in our body of history that's making us have these reactions, that part's not really taught to us. So we're always trying to figure stuff out on our own, and we're usually just kind of living through our reactions, and one reaction creates another and another and another, and then a counter reaction, and so on. So using a time limit is one of the strongest ways that you can begin to become consciously aware of your thinking and to gain control of the process of moving from negative to positive. Okay? All right, a second technique is, I meant to grab you guys some, what do we call them? Do you remember, you guys are going to remember. Remember they used to have these rubber bands that all little kids had, and they were in shapes. What were they called?
Oh.
Silly bands. Yeah, good. Thank you, Kenneth. Silly bands. Do you remember silly bands? Right? I had a bunch of them at home, and I was going to grab them and bring them and give them to you, but I forgot. Maybe I'll bring them in May if I remember. But what you do is you take a band of something that's elastic. It can be a rubber band, a hair band. It could be a silly band, anything, a bracelet, an elastic bracelet, but just something that's easy to get on and off. And you keep it on your left wrist, okay? When it's on your left wrist, it's there as a visual and physical reminder to be aware of what you're thinking. So you know how if you tie a string on your finger, it's going to remind you to buy milk on the way home? This is sort of like that. It's about having, sometimes you'll just catch the band in your peripheral. It's just to kind of make you be conscious of your thoughts and that your thoughts are there with you. Now, whenever you find yourself going down a rabbit hole, whether you're driving or you're coming home or you're doing something, and you start to say, I'm not really happy with where my thoughts are at this minute. I'm not happy with the way my thoughts are making me feel. What you do is just take the band off your left hand and put it on your right hand. When you put it on your right hand, give yourself the suggestion that it's very, very, very heavy. Make yourself feel uncomfortable having it on your right hand. When it's on your right hand, just feel irritated by it, okay? Like want to try to get it off. But don't take it off until you use the techniques in Freedom from Negative Thinking and you find one where you're actually elevating how you feel and you're back in control of mastering your thought energy, okay? So moving it to the right hand is a reminder to use techniques to gain the control over where your thoughts are going. Does everybody understand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. I know I give a lot of information quickly, so this next part, this is for the AP students only. If you're not an AP student, don't worry about it because it doesn't really matter in the end, but I'll say it anyway for those that like it. The reason we're going from the left hand to the right hand is because the left hand symbolizes our relationship with all that is eternal and good and light and free. The heart, the soul, the soul, intuition, compassion, expansion, and creativity. The right side, which is the side that you only have one liver and it's on the right side, it's the side that removes the toxins from being human. So the right side is metaphoric for the human experience. So therefore, if you're not feeling like you are the one that's mastering your thought energy, it's because something in life has dragged you down. So that's the right side of the body. That's why it's heavy, because it's the human experience that has pulled at you, okay? But you don't have to know right and left why. Just go from the left to the right and back again. It's so funny because sometimes when I have clients start to use the band, I'll get a little panicked email. I moved the band 40 times today. Is there something wrong with me? And I'm like, no, that's absolutely fantastic. And I'll tell you why. Number one, that means you recognized it 40 times. You've already broken a habit of not being aware of your thoughts. And number two, you kept moving it back. That's really good news. That means you did something to get it back from the right to the left. So moving it 40 times in the beginning is fantastic. That's very, very, very good news. Okay? Maybe it'll be 25 on the second day. Any questions? No? Nobody? No?
See if there's any on the computer.
Oh, yeah. How do I do that? I used to know how to do this. I can do it, right? Oh, chat. I got it. Oh, there's somebody here is in the cherry trees. That's all I got. No questions, though. That's cute. Thank you. Okay. All right. Next technique. You know, a lot of times we hear how it's important to quiet the mind. We're actually not quieting the mind. What we're actually doing is we're subduing the left brain and we're enhancing our interconnectedness with the right brain. The left brain is your navigation system for having a body. Your soul does not understand the left brain. Your human is the left brain. So the left brain is your navigation system. It teaches you, helps you get from one place to another. It helps you understand space. It also is your timekeeper. It helps you to exist within linear reality and within sequence, because when we're not in our bodies, there's no such thing as time and there's no such thing as space, no such thing as place. So the left brain helps us to be human. Without the left brain, who knows where we'd be or what time it would be. No one would know. So we do need it, but it also is the depository for your negative emotions. And it's also the depository for incorrect information. So for example, all that stuff that I said, don't touch, don't do, us being over-legislated, over-rules-oriented, constantly bombarded with reasons to be afraid, all of that misinformation that we're given, it gets stored in the left brain. So it works hard, and it's got a lot of sludge in it, okay? It also is our taskmaster. It's the one that handles our to-do lists. It handles our structure. None of what I just said sounds very playful and free, does it? So it'll keep you confined. It may keep you organized, but it's also going to keep you confined, and it's very, very likely to keep you down. So what you want to do is you want to just take a break from that part and move off to the part that's open and expansive, and that is the right brain. So if you realize that it's the right brain, and the right brain helps us to laugh, to play, to create, to imagine, to love, to expand, to be limitless, to be curious, to be optimistic. Don't you want to be there and hang out there a little bit more? Right? Yeah. I know I do. One of the challenges up until my own awakening was I lived almost only in the left brain. That was the byproduct of the childhood that I grew up with. That was where you were praised. And if you ever made a little motion over into right brain activities, that was not appreciated at all. So you tended to toe the line and go right back into academia and logic and science and analytical reasoning and being punctual and being courteous and all of that other stuff. So if you spend more time in your right brain, you are naturally going to have fewer negative thoughts, naturally, because the right brain is not the place for the negative. It doesn't exist there. It doesn't have a happy home there. It doesn't know how to get in there. If you think about this for a second, you cannot sustain a happy and a negative thought at the same time. You cannot simultaneously think a positive and a negative thought. You can toggle quickly, but you cannot have both of them at the same time. That helps you to see that you're either in one or the other. So we want to toggle to the one that's sustaining the positivity and grow it. It's like any other muscle. If you give it some attention, it will grow and it will become stronger. I know that one of the byproducts of my own path of enlightenment is that I am not as, what's the word? That's not a personal put down. I'm not as good with time and space as I used to be, right? I'm not as organized as I used to be. I didn't understand why until I recognized that I'm really not exercising the left brain the way I used to. And by being a conduit to universal knowledge and spending so much time with my consciousness away from my body, time and space and hate and pain are meaningless and irrelevant and non-existent. So of course I'm going to have a little bit tougher time locking into it, right? So for me, I no longer multitask, and sometimes I don't even single task. So it's okay though, because if I have to start the car, I'm the one now, like if I'm leaving my car, I'm like, the keys are in my hand, the keys are in my hand, the keys are in my hand, and then I close the door. But I have to do it 3 times just to make sure I'm living in the linear, because it's not natural. There are no car keys in the energy realm, people, okay? If you want your car unlocked, you think it and it's unlocked. Yeah, and then it drives up for you when you get in it, okay? So we don't have to do that there, huh?
What car?
If you want one, you can have one. If you want to project it into your conscious reality to experience it, you can have it. If you want to lock your keys in it too, you can actually project that. But I'll tell you, you also have a spare in your consciousness. Unless you can trick yourself to not know it's there. Try that when you go back. Okay, Kevin, tell us how it went. So how do you then quiet the mind? Let's get back to the term quiet the mind. You quiet the mind by doing those things that enhance the growth of the right brain. And that has everything. You know what? That's kind of going to be a fun thing to do when we get back from the break, okay? Let's take a break, meet and mingle. And I brought water and cups over there. If you want a cup of coffee, let us know. We'll whip you up a little Keurig cup of coffee and meet each other and have a good time. We'll come back in like 5 or 10 minutes. Okay? All right. Okay, welcome back. All right, so I'm sure you did nothing on the break except think about right brain versus left brain, right? And how to quiet the mind. So who has a suggestion of how we can quiet the mind?
Oh, meditation.
Meditation, definitely. Meditation is probably the most readily available, easy to use, easy to pack. Take it with you anywhere you go. You can use it anytime, any space, anyway, and it works. And I don't meditate. I don't like to meditate, and that's good news too. Because if I can be at the state of consciousness that I'm at and I don't meditate, then that means that there's a lot of other ways to get there. Because I know that I've come across clients that, you know, want to relieve themselves of their own stress and move past obstacles, and then they try to meditate and they don't have any success with it, and they get very frustrated and they feel like failures. Well, moving from the left brain to the right brain doesn't mean you're supposed to get more frustrated, you're supposed to get less. So when you find out that you don't have to meditate, that's kind of good news too. That said, I do think meditation, if it's successful for you, is probably the simplest, most reliable way to get there. Okay, so I recommend you try it or do it. Anyone else?
Like gratitude, thinking of good things in life.
Yes, gratitude, appreciation. Many years ago, it's probably about 10 years ago now, the gratitude movement was so powerful. I was actually starting to see clients who were feeling inadequate because they didn't think that they appreciated their lives enough, right? And then they'd be like, oh, my kids are healthy. And every time they had a bad thought, they'd feel bad for having a bad thought because that meant that they didn't appreciate the good in their lives. So gratitude, you want to be mindful of the way you approach it. To have real gratitude doesn't mean that you're counting a list of blessings because you didn't value them before you started counting them. It's about what you're doing with your focus. It's about the feeling of enjoyment, the feeling of liking something. It's not about having a checklist of saying, oh, look how good I have it, so I really shouldn't feel so crummy about this. That's only going to make you feel inadequate or flawed, and that's not the goal of gratitude. What I like to say, the way I would phrase that is, in every circumstance, find something to appreciate if the circumstance itself or the person or whatever is going on in front of you that might be difficult, just find something to appreciate within that experience or within that person. And when you find something to appreciate, again, you can't sustain a negative and a positive thought at the same time. It shifts your thoughts. So you might move from judgment to valuing some quality in somebody or something. Okay? Okay, cool. Yeah.
I had a question before about when you were talking about right brain, left brain. Do you mind if I ask it now?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
I wrote it there, so I have to refresh my memory on it. But how do you allow yourself to become more right brain and more associated with right brain when people, let's say, are judging me for seeming different about, you know, like I carry myself differently, or, oh, you seem like you're different, you seem like you're out there. Like I sense a lot of judgment coming from other people.
Right, right.
When I try and make that.
Yeah. The question is, how do you move toward some of these feelings of gratitude and less negative thinking and being more in the right brain if you're being judged by others because you're different? And there is actually judgment even of people who are living more toward the right brain, but there's a lot of judgment no matter what. You know, when you're growing self-love, when you're building your feeling of how you're worthy, if the people who contributed to you not necessarily feeling worthy are the ones that you're spending a dominant amount of your focus or your time with, or you're living with them, it's going to be hard for you to rise within that setting. Okay? It's really interesting. Group behavior is that when somebody shifts in a group, and they change within that group, the group usually tries to bring that person back to the unwritten rule set of the group. So think of it as though you're handed a script within every group, and as long as you read from the script once or twice or 3 times, you're not allowed to change up the script without approval from the entire group. So sometimes growing in self-love means that you have to kind of start pulling yourself a little bit away from those who may have been detractors instead of supporters, and find more people that will uplift you, or more people that will be optimistic and less fear-based, and that just act as if you matter and that they really like you. So the answer is, it's a difficult thing to stay in a crummy environment when you no longer choose to feel crummy. Okay. I know that sounds like it's hard, but when you put the intention to it, and even if you use the gratitude part of paying attention to how you feel when you're with loving people, that intention plus paying attention with gratitude or appreciation of how it feels to be with loving people, that actually helps to start pushing away those who are not acting in that loving vibration. So it doesn't have to be done with dynamite. It can be done simply by being mindful of where you're putting your focus and having the belief that it's possible to have an environment of loving, supportive people and ideas and happenings and experiences. Okay? Okay. Yeah.
Can I say one thing to that? You should take that as a complete compliment. When someone tells you that
you're right, Anne. You should.
So.
Yes, thank you, Anne.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Yes. Yes.
Everybody's going to judge for believing anyway.
Right.
You're going to be judged. Everybody judges you for everything, whether you're out there or in there or whatever. So, you know, if they were thinking that you're purple, you're not really purple. That's their problem. So just don't worry about that.
There's a statement that goes, what other people think of you is none of your business.
Right. Yes, I heard that. You're right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm reading a note here, and the notes are coming in from someone that clearly took the Freedom from Negative Thinking seminar, which I think is kind of cute, because the one that's typed out here is exercise, but it's written, move your body to move your mind. Because that's a Karen Garvey quote, move your body to move your mind, or move your body to move your thoughts. She quoted me more accurately than I quoted me. So, yeah.
No, I was just going to answer your original question. For me, I'm not great at the meditating anyway. You know, I mean, I might wind up in a meditative state accidentally. But if I try to do it, I just can't get there.
Yeah.
So for me, something tactile like gardening or playing, doing something creative like with clay or building something or fixing something.
Yes.
Those are the things that take me into a very narrow focus that's outside of my mind, just a task.
Yes.
Or a creative moment.
Absolutely.
Like
absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
So one of the best ways I find for people who have issues with meditating is breathing.
Okay.
Which is a form of meditating. So you can't do meditation, with your mind, do it with your body and do it with your breathing. And
yes.
Help you.
Yes. All right. So what is being said is that alternatives to meditation, which is alternatives to how to quiet your mind, right? Meditation is one form of quieting your mind. I was reading the thing and exercising is another, but what was being said here is participating in a task that is usually it has a beginning and an end.
Right.
And so what you're doing is your focus is within the task. It could be washing dishes or painting a fence or making a swirly shape in the sand. It could be anything. But when you have a task at hand, it can bring you to the state that meditation can bring you to it because it's a meditative type of activity, and it frees up your left brain, so you're not spending your time in there again. And likewise, what you're saying as well. Well, what did you say? I don't remember, Myron. What was it? Oh, breathing. Yes, absolutely. So breathing is another form of letting go of all of the tasks and thinking. When you're paying attention to your breathing and the breathing itself, even how it oxygenates the brain, breathing is another way. And sometimes it's interesting how if I told you right now, take a deep breath and lower your shoulders, right? Everybody take a deep breath and lower your shoulders on the exhale. Do it 3 times. Take another deep breath. Lower your shoulders on the exhale. 1 more. Take a deep breath. Lower your shoulders. Okay? I'm going to try to remember to have you see where your shoulders are in a minute or so. But let's take a peek in a minute or so, okay? Okay, so yes, breathing is great.
I just wanted I used to teach yoga, and breathing is the way of yoga. I mean, everything is done within your own breath. But a lot of times if you're just starting out, to breathe, when you breathe in, you want to think of yourself as a jug. And when you breathe in, you start filling from the bottom. If you were to pour water, you're going to breathe from the bottom. So you pull that air down and you breathe up till you fill. And now you're going to empty the jug. So now you're going to exhale from the top and breathe when you exhale out and you pull your stomach in. And if you concentrate on that, thoughts of how you're breathing in and breathing out, it really helps then with clearing your mind and breathing at the same time.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to repeat that for the actual viewers, but I'm going to make an attempt. There's a jug, there's breathing, you empty. Sorry. But how about if I do say that yoga practices breathing techniques that allow you to quiet your mind, okay? And one of the other techniques that we would list also would be yoga, and I would have gotten to that one on the list, but you nailed it too. So yoga is another one. And I have in my client base and in my audience is a lot of people who practice yoga or have yoga studios or yoga masters. And so I'm around people who practice yoga a lot. So I can also see through them and what they model that it seems to be a technique that you can use and duplicate in a relatively simple way. It's portable, any place, anywhere. You know, maybe not the restroom, but most places you can practice yoga, even in a hotel room if you want to. Now, here's the interesting thing. I always find this kind of interesting difference with me is I can't practice yoga. My spine, all of my vertebrae are fused, so I can't practice yoga. But I find that so interesting that the two techniques that are the most enduring and the most I see as portable and simple to duplicate throughout history and very, very successful, I can't use either one. So that means that part of my role here on this planet is to help those who perhaps yoga or meditation is not exactly right for them. So to keep thinking that there are lots and lots of other ways. I suggest immerse yourself in the practice of yoga or meditation if it works for you and you have a good teacher, or change it up. Because if you can nail either one of those, I'm going to tell you, I think you got a good, nice path there for yourself. Okay. So try it, definitely. Okay, so any other techniques? Dancing, yes, yeah. Let's get back to move your body to move your thoughts. Moving your body, there's a lot of ways that you can move your body. Of course, one of them is yoga. But when you move your body, whether you're dancing or you're looking in the mirror and smiling, or you're clapping, or you're hopping, or you're hiking, or walking, or playing tennis, or doing some stretching, or some Pilates, or some Tai Chi, if you're moving your body, it's actually very difficult to stay in the left brain or to stay in a negative state when you are moving your body. So when all else fails, walk away from the environment that you're in, whatever might make you feel trapped or disenchanted or disempowered, and get yourself into moving somewhere else and doing something different. I don't think I really talk about this, but during the Enlightenment big years for me, I had some things going on in life that were just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how could this land on one person's plate at once, right? You know, that feeling? Don't ask me to carry that straw for you, because everything is going to crumble. And one night I came home from a really, really difficult day. It was like 11:30 at night. Somebody I loved was dying. They were in a hospital in Harlem. I had an infant. I was nursing and not doing well. Nobody was supporting me in the hospital. I mean, it was just, and then there was more on top of that, right? So it was 11:30 at night. I'm home from Harlem. And at that point, way back when, I wasn't good at navigating the city to begin with. So even that creates a stress if you don't really know how to drive in the city very well. Now I could do it with my eyes closed, so come drive with me. But so I was very stressed. And I got home. I don't remember how old I was, in my late 30s, I guess. And my head, it felt so strange. Like I never felt like that before. Like the stress, I felt like my head was just filled with cauliflower made of lead, and it was going to pop. I can't even describe to you what it was like. But somehow I knew if I went to bed, I felt like I was going to put myself in danger if I went to bed. Like this was not going to self-recover. So it must have been like the beginning of when intuition was starting to come for me, that I knew that this was not good. This was not typical for me, that this was beyond something that sleeping would resolve in me that night. So I decided first of all, the last time I ran was when some dumbass phys ed teacher told me I had to run around a track, and they timed me, right? So I did that once, never did it again. I probably never went to gym again. So I'm not a runner at all. So I sat there in that house that night. It was a cold, cold night in November, the end of November. I said, I'm going for a run. Like, who does that? So 11:30, I found some inappropriate clothing, meaning inappropriate for the weather. I wasn't wearing fishnet stockings. So I grabbed some inappropriate clothing and I went outside and I went running. And I hit that pavement, and I went back later, a few days later, to see how far I'd run because of what happened to me that night. And I thought I ran like a mile, like Superman. And when I went back and I measured it with the car, I ran not even a quarter of a mile, okay? Not even a quarter of a mile. But all of a sudden, I hit that quarter mile mark, and my head opened up, like it expanded. The cauliflower and the lead dissolved. My breathing was normal. I didn't feel any stress. I didn't feel any pressure. To me, it was like a miracle because I had never, ever, ever run before.
4 minutes later, you were back in the house.
4 minutes later, I'm done. It's 11:38. I'm going to bed. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow. That was pretty much how it went. Yeah. So, but what it helped me to discover, which has been really helpful with clients and with myself, is that it is so important that you move your body on a regular basis, exercise-wise, not just moving your body to move your thoughts. Your body is muscle, and it's all of these systems that work beautifully together, but they want to be worked. You know, I think one of the worst things that ever happened in this world was the creation of the washing machine for clothing, because all of a sudden we're like, hey, I don't have to stand down by the rock and pound my clothes, right? Well, what if I also don't have to knead my bread and I have some kind of bread machine? And what if I have an electric saw? Hell, what if I have a phone and I can hire someone to bring me my wood? So we just stopped. We stopped moving, right? We just stopped moving. We don't move anymore. Okay, so our bodies are not living to their vibrancy anymore because the renewal of movement and exercise is not keeping all of the chemicals functioning and all the systems of our body functioning the way that they're meant to function. So I recognize for myself now that if I skip 2 days of exercise, I can be okay on the third day, but I'm going to make sure I get some kind of exercise in on the third day. I will not skip 3 days of exercise under any circumstance whatsoever. Any circumstance, no matter what. If I'm in a hotel, I'll exercise in the hotel room. I don't like gyms. I'll go out for a walk. I'll go out for a run. I'll go out for a hike. I will do anything to make sure that I am getting my body to move. And all of that stuff that you carry just seems to dissolve when you get that movement going. Where are your shoulders?
Back up. The left one's a little higher than it was before. But I put my arm on the armrest, so that could be why.
So now you see, it's like not only it's how we think, it's what we do, right? Our shoulders tend to be up. They tend to be up. Okay. So moving your body is very important. But someone once explained what I'm going to tell you next. They told me the science behind it, and that was really exciting. But I don't remember the science behind it, so if you want to go look it up, good. You also look up the whole, vessel thing. Was it a vessel? A jug?
Jug.
Look up the whole jug thing.
I use the jug.
The jug. All right, look up the jug thing, because I didn't say that well. Look this one up, too. But I noticed that if my thoughts were crummy and I had no option, like I had to get back to a phone call or I had this or I had that. These were back in the days when I was learning to have freedom from negative thinking. I don't really have the need to do this anymore. But if I had like a very short amount of time to shift my thoughts and I could feel they were really creeping up on me, there's a very simple movement that you can do. And I want to show it all to you. So everybody just stand up for a minute. Okay. So what we want to do is you want to pretend that you're going to touch the ceiling with your palms. Okay. So you keep your legs just spread apart a little tiny bit, not too much, and reach as though the palms are pushing at the ceiling. And if you can, and you have balance, and try to keep the elbows kind of straight and push that ceiling. I really want to see your palms on the ceiling, palms on the ceiling. Push the palms on the ceiling. And if you can get up on those toes, really go up there. You should be in somewhat of a shape of a V, okay? Somewhat of a shape of a V, and push. And when you keep your hands out there, even if you could do it for 10 seconds, if you don't have balance, you can come down off your heels. But if you keep the balance, you're going to start to feel a ball of energy in your palms. Okay? You can actually feel it. There's a ball of energy in your palms. What the ball of the energy in your palms is the universe. It's the energy of the universe. You're reaching up. It's allowing you to know that it's there. It's reminding you that you're not alone. It's putting its pulse of everything good through your body. And when you come back down, if you even circle your hands, you can feel the energy ball stays in your hand. And then your thoughts actually can't be negative. You're going to have freedom from negative thinking just for doing that for 30 seconds. It's amazing, isn't it? It's like a quick cure.
And juggle them afterwards.
Huh? And then you juggle them. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
That'd be some good balls there, huh? Okay. Yeah.
You just remind me of, with that, there's a guy, Lee Holden, he does like this, like 10-minute Qigong or however you pronounce it, that thing on YouTube. And sometimes we do that in the morning.
Oh,
And
nice.
10-minute one. And that's just, a couple little things, but it's
Yes.
like, lifting up the ball of energy and pushing around and stuff.
Yes.
And that is a perfect way to.
Yes, that's really great
help
too.
everyone.
Yes.
Lee Holden.
That's interesting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And like I said, someone had one time told me the science behind why this works as beautifully as it does. So I've always enjoyed the science part of things. There's been a few things I've stumbled upon without the science, and because I have so much faith in everything that I get now, I'll share without the science. And then usually someone comes around and tells me the science behind it after the fact anyway. Got something coming up here that I don't want to come up. Yeah, there we go. Let's get rid of that. Okay. All right. And as far as exercise and moving your body, it's great to play even like a team sport or play tennis or something like that. But for the true quieting of the mind, it's important that your physical activity be solo. Okay, because we have a tendency to share in the energy or the experience of someone else that we're with, or there's some level of consciousness or awareness when we have other people within our play space. Okay, I love to hike. I hike a lot, and sometimes I hike alone, and sometimes I hike with other people. It's a very different experience either way I go, but I won't hesitate to go by myself if it's, the middle of a work day or something, and everyone else is tied to a desk, and other people are down at the river beating their clothes because their washing machine's broken. So I won't hesitate to go by myself. And what that brings me to is one of the things that I like about hiking is nature, because that's another way to quiet your mind. Interacting with nature, interacting with listening, seeing, touching, feeling, smelling nature. It's a fantastic way to quiet the mind. Being in outdoor spaces, being with animals in indoor spaces, even taking care of plants in your house or growing herbs or anything like that. When you're with nature, it's a wonderful way to quiet the mind. I had there was a couple of little things that I think I was intuitive about for me personally before the Big Bang. Would that be it? Huh? So before the Big Bang, for me, I always I would like sometimes go to a gym and go, and then I wouldn't go anymore. And I could never put my finger on why I wouldn't stick with the gym, because I'm really okay. I actually like to exercise ever since that night in November, that cold night way back when. I like exercising now. But I realized that in a gym, for me personally, I don't want to be with the energy of other people, because there's a mindfulness in being with other people that means that I can't have all of this all to myself. I can't empty. It can't be empty, because there are people and there's clothing and there's music and there's machines and they're doing it better than me. And trust me, in a gym, everybody's doing everything better than me. So there's a lot going on in there, So for me personally, almost all of my exercise is outdoors, almost entirely, unless the weather is so reprehensible that I can't go out. So also think in terms of you. What kind of exercise makes you feel like you have a quiet mind? Not just what makes the body feel a certain way that you want it to feel, but what also makes you feel peaceful? What makes you feel like you've let go of some stress? What makes you feel fulfilled? If a gym is doing it for you, that's fantastic. But if you're one of those people that's not the environment that works for you, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's okay to choose a different method. Just choose something that you like and stick with it or change it up. Okay? Another thing is baths and showers. It's a great way to quiet the mind, and there's a good reason for it. If you have a ritual of washing your hair or your body or shaving or whatever it is you do in there, what you do in there is your business. But whatever the ritual is, it's going to take a certain amount of time every day. And even if you wanted to hurry, trust me, you're not going to shave off more than a minute or two if you're hurrying.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Yes, I got that. Thank you, Mr. Green Screen. So yes, that's correct. So what the body has become, the mind and the body and the spirit has become accustomed to, is that when you walk into that space where you're going to start the ritual, it knows it doesn't have to attend to anything for that whole period of time until you leave that room again. And because it knows that this is a fact, it actually, it puts you into a meditative state. I found that one of the places I would get some of my Facebook quotes or some of my good ideas for an essay or some downloads from guides would be while I was in the shower. So for a period of time, I would actually just keep a notepad and a pen in the bathroom with me. So when these downloads came, I could slobber all over the notebook. And I will tell you that spiral notebooks, the blue lines, they do smear, just so you know. They do smear, okay? Unless you purchase one. Waterproof ink on my loose leaf notebook. Okay, not a feature. So so that's another place. And if you typically take showers, then if you go to take a bath, for sure that's a Zen meditative thing to do, because no one goes and says, I'm going to take a nice hot bath today. Then they run the water, put the bath there, get the wine, put the oils in there, dip in and jump back out, right? Just by nature, you're going to stay in there and relax and unwind and de-stress and let go, okay? So baths and showers and any kind of body of water, if you immerse yourself in water, water alone can help you to quiet your mind. Anyone have any other thoughts about how to quiet your mind?
Coloring.
Coloring, yes, coloring. I like to do that, coloring. Yes, so yes, you know what you're opening up that I didn't get to yet is anything that is creative. It could be the visual arts. It could be anything to do with music, listening, composing, writing, singing, anything tactile, art-wise, photography, colors, pencils, hands in stuff, all of that, absolutely positively, yes. And in particular, coloring is helpful because coloring has a Zen element to it too, because if you're coloring something that's in front of you and just coloring in all the boxes, you're not going through the process of creating too. So there's no self-criticism or self-judgment or worry that might come along with creating on a blank canvas that some artists experience. So yes, already there for you, but perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And when I'm thinking back to my own freedom of negative thinking experiences, one of the things that I did back then was I created an inspirational playlist, and I had an iPod, so I didn't create it because I didn't know how. Someone created an inspirational. I told them what songs, and then they created it for me and downloaded it onto my iPod. Uploaded it onto my iPod? I don't know. But there was a playlist on my iPod, and what it was songs that made me feel something. They made me feel like I got myself out of the way. I felt inspired. I got the chills. It was a voice or a flute or something that kind of took me away. You know, that kind of music that speaks to you? So it's not about judging the genre of music or what music speaks to you, but it's about selecting songs and try to put together like a 30-minute playlist. And when you do find yourself in a mood that feels down instead of up, just listen to that playlist. because you're the one that selected the music that you personally find uplifting. The other part of it too is if anything became stale on that playlist, I replaced it. Because it's okay to say that that particular song's not doing it for me anymore, and then just put something else in that is inspiring to you. Whatever it is, no judgment, but whatever inspires you. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's listened to the Tibetan bells, and
yes,
if you can stay stressed listening to
the
that,
Tibetan,
you're really stressed because those vibrations from those bonging, that vibration can just send you someplace else.
Yes,
so
absolutely. The vibration of, years ago, I had someone here as a guest, and they played,
Crystal ball.
She played the crystal bowls, and she also sang with them. She had a very, very, very beautiful voice. And then she would walk around the room in here, and she would bring a bowl over to certain people with a certain tune or tone or whatever. I have to tell you, that was fascinating to me for being with it live for the first time, because you really do feel, it's one thing to listen to it if it's over,
it's not good
but
that way.
it's not. But when you're live with it, the vibration of the bowls is extraordinary. Like you could feel it come up through your entire body. You can feel the vibration inside of you. So that's really fun and fascinating too. I did hike today. Yeah, when did I do that? I did it. Yeah, see how tight I am? So I did hike today, and you know where I was chatting it up with a guide. I don't talk to my guides very much. I'm too busy talking to all of your guides. So today I got to talk to a swan and a goose and a guide. Swan, a goose, and a guide. That sounds like either a joke or a book. I don't know which one. A swan, a goose, and a guide walk into a bar. Yeah. Okay. So I was chatting it up with him, and I mean, I understand that the physical universe is comprised of vibrations, right? But what was coming to me when we were walking, okay. So we were walking, me and my guide, and what came to me was that every sound has a vibration. Every sound has a vibration. So we as vibrational beings, it's going to be different sounds even beyond music that are resonating with us and bringing us into some form of alignment. And there are going to be some sounds that are off-putting to us, and they sound irritating and like noise because they're not vibrating with what puts us in balance in that moment. And so I was thinking about, I was really just thinking about wind chimes, right? Wind chimes are an interesting source of sound because they're only chiming when there's a breeze or there's wind. So I feel like having a set of wind chimes, if you like the tone of your wind chimes, it's almost like in cooperative agreement with the universe to use it as a tool, because the universe is going to help you to have sound sometimes and not others, and sometimes a little bit more sound and sometimes less sound. I thought that was a really interesting thought, that it doesn't need batteries, but that you let the universe sometimes chime in with you, and sometimes there's just complete silence. But I was also thinking just in terms of like the water. There's one part on my hike where there's a stream, and I like to stand there and listen to the stream, and I listen to the birds, and I listen to the leaves, and I listen to the wind, and I love the vibrations of all of those different sounds. And even in nature, there might be some sounds that you don't like. Like last night in the middle of the night, it might have been two possums fighting. But raccoons are the ones that make that noise? Yeah, they smell. Yeah, it's raccoons?
Yeah, it's
raccoons. Okay, so like that didn't real nature, cool, but that wasn't resonating with my vibration. But it's just so interesting to think in terms of the vibration of sound and the vibration of everything, that it is that we experience. We created this physical manifestation. So all of this is within our dominion to enjoy, to create, to explore, to reject, or whatever it is we want to do. But you want to notice it. It's there. It's very, very tangible. It's there for us to experience.
Just wanted to add, I was taking a hike actually 2 days ago. No, yesterday. And it was up at James Hill in Huntington, West Hills County Park.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
there was no wind around. It was like the calmest day.
Yeah.
And as I was walking, I guess, down the last road that came out of the woods onto the pavement, there was this huge pine tree. And I couldn't feel the wind, but the wind, I guess, 40 feet higher, was hitting the pine tree at just the right angle and making this like huge whooshing noise.
Wow.
It was the only tree swaying in the entire park.
Wow.
That was just really cool.
Yeah.
So it reminded me of what you were saying.
Well, you got a lot going in there. Being with nature, exercise, gratitude, appreciation, being with the vibration. It's interesting. Changing your focus, being aware. It's
It all
so
came
nice.
together at that moment.
Yeah, it's amazing.
A friend of mine reached out to me through Facebook, and it's somebody that has been putting up inspirational quotes and, you know, all the things that I've been interested in.
Okay.
So we get together today. She said, let's get together. And we went out east. I picked her up, and she's like, how about let's go out to, like, I think it's Southampton, and there's a park out there, and you just put your hand up with seeds.
The bird.
Oh,
The
Elizabeth, Elizabeth Morton.
Yeah, Elizabeth Morton.
Sanctuary. Yes.
So this is what we did today.
I love that place.
And
We go there.
I had never been there.
I love
had
it.
never known the name.
The Elizabeth Morton
It's
Sanctuary.
Elizabeth Morton Wildlife Sanctuary in
Yeah.
Nyack Road.
So
It's fantastic.
Just all the things, the observations
Yes.
around me.
Did you have seeds with you?
Sounds and- yeah.
Yes.
And they were just coming and eating right out of your hand. It
Yes.
was so cool.
Yeah. One of my Facebook quotes, maybe I'll try to put it up tomorrow if I can think of it, but one of my Facebook quotes is a picture of me at that particular sanctuary, and there's a chickadee in my hand. So I think I put it up a couple of weeks ago. Yes.
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, I love that place. It's so cool having the birds in your hands, you know, and even if you get down on the ground and you stay really still, the chipmunks will come into your hands and eat out of your hands there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it there. Love it there. Yeah, fantastic. We usually go there once a year.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Where'd you say what?
It's called,
how?
like Morton Salt. It's Elizabeth Morton's Wildlife Sanctuary, and it's on Nyack, Noyack Road in Sag Harbor. It's only kind of hard to find, so Google it because
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, I used to drive past it all the time.
She completely led me there. I was blind
Yeah.
to what I was doing, you know.
It's
So,
great.
But
It's
it was like
fantastic.
really, like, she's like, just tell me if this is what you're into. I'm like, this is really weird. Like that, this is all coming to me. You know what I mean? Because
Yes. Yes.
you know, you go to the mall or you go to eat, you know. And she suggested this, and this is like.
If I can
totally-
remember the last time I was in a mall,
Yeah, like you know.
I can't
I'm just
think of
saying,
the
like,
last
what
time I
the
was in a
girl is
mall.
Typically,
I really
pull
can't.
you up to do, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
Yeah,
thought we
that's
should just
good.
go to lunch, and she
Yes.
came up with this, and I was
Yes.
like, wow, this is really cool.
Yes. Yeah, so these are all wonderful ways to quiet your mind and very, very good ways to get the freedom from negative thinking. And if you incorporate them into your life, you actually find that those good focuses and those good choices, they squeeze out some of that negative stuff that happens. One of the byproducts of the path of enlightenment is that fewer things that are negative happen to you. You know, I wish people would start sharing that. It's not just that you go through a great phase where you're choosing a different reaction to that which it is chaotic or in crisis. It's that the crisis and the chaos, they get less and less and less and less. And most people don't talk about that as a byproduct of enlightenment because I don't think enough people on the planet are there to see that that's a byproduct of enlightenment, you know. But if we tell this to each other, maybe we can recruit new members because it is a byproduct. Life does become more peaceful. It does become more happy. It becomes less chaotic. Even simple things like machines breaking down and floods and trees falling on your house, that stuff actually, it dissipates. Those tumultuous things that you experienced, they get less and less and less. It's actually quite remarkable. It's really amazing. All right, so freedom from negative thinking, quiet your mind, move your body to move your thoughts, put out a time limit, and then have the bracelet moving from side to side. Let me think if there's any others that I can give you out there quickly before we end tonight. Language. Let it be the way that you talk to yourself. Let it be the way that you think and the way that you focus. Okay? So 180-degree change.
Wait, what are you doing with the
and then you cross off the negative thought. If you actually
two pieces of paper, it's on the
no, I just jot down the one. I jot down the one. I think about it. I write down an empowering 180-degree shift, and then I cross the first one off. Because the crossing off, when you're using your body, it helps to take it away. When a lot of times it's important that you take something out of your storage and you put it somewhere else to help you move past it. All right? So freedom from negative thinking. If you follow these tools on a regular basis and you make them a habit, what starts to happen is that fear doesn't have a way to get back in. You become less fearful. You become less afraid of everything. Because even a thought of fear, you can turn it around 180 degrees and turning it into an empowering thought. Sometimes I would do something kind of dramatic to turn it around, but if you keep giving yourself the intention to turn it around 180 degrees, eventually you will. So I'll give you a last example here tonight. Whenever they recall a food, again, I go and I scoop it all up, or send someone to scoop it up for me, and then I eat it. So if the spinach was taken off the shelves, I grab bags of spinach and I eat it. I don't wash it, I just eat it. Because what it's doing is it's taking me out of the space of collective fear. And I know that when I do that, I feel powerful, and I certainly know that the foods are not going to harm me. So I've never gotten sick from any of those foods when I take them after they're recalled. It's just another way of me having a conversation with my body that tells my body that we're in this together, we're vibrant, we're healthy, we're in it for the long run, and we're going to support each other and to continue to support each other throughout this physical journey. So I've opted out of poor health, okay? So it's all a matter of paying attention to your own thoughts, paying attention to your conversations. If anyone starts to draw me into a conversation of dread, it would never happen in an environment like this or anywhere that I work, ever. But every now and then I'll socialize with people outside of my work, and if I get pulled into a conversation that's negative or dreadful or anything, I just pull myself back out. I'll put a spin on it. I'll say something not connected. Oh, look there. I'll do whatever I have to do. Keep a flare in my back pocket. Nothing to see there. And then I run. But whatever it is, you are the one that can be the master of your own focus and the master of your own thoughts, and opt to be fearless. Have freedom from negative thinking, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful month. And I will see you back here on May. I'll see you back here on May 8th. I'll see you back on May 8th, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for being here.